All right, welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder, and today I have a special guest coming from Greenville, South Carolina, one of my favorite cities that I just actually visited. He's a chief development officer and a part owner of one of the fastest growing life insurance companies, where he personally sold over 8,000 insurance policies in 3.5 years. Very impressive. He's a podcast host of his popular podcast, the Breadwinner Podcast and the Sales Wolves Podcast. He has popular daily, weekly vlogs where you can watch and learn from one of the best insurance sales professionals in the business. Watch his story, watch his life. Very entertaining, very interesting too. He's a top influencer on social media currently, so if you haven't followed him, check him out. He's also been featured in Forbes magazine multiple times. And most importantly, he's a husband and father of one. Tyler Jack Harris, thank you so much for coming on The Real Build. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be here. Let's do this.
All right. So I always get started this with everybody, and for people that don't know you, asking about your background. So let's talk about who is Tyler Jack Harris.
Man, my favorite way to answer that question is with the truth. And the truth is, I'm just an ordinary guy. But I believe I'm doing extraordinary things by my willingness to put in the extra. And that extra is just work. I don't believe that I have any particular skills, talents, or abilities that are necessarily heads and shoulders above other people. I'm just willing to put in a disgusting amount of work to get what I need to get done. And I think that's, where a lot of people miss the boat. They think that they're talented, or they think that they've got, skills in a particular area, but they're not willing to put the actual amount of effort and work in to have those extraordinary results. And so, that's my story. Really the more interesting part of my story is probably 5 years ago. I was flat broke. I'd been through a failed marriage, failed business, was in debt, was, depressed, out of shape. It was just a really bad situation, kind of rock bottom for me. And, found some mentors that really breathed life back into me, saw more in me than I saw in myself at that time. And they gave me an opportunity in the insurance world. And, I took it and ran with it. And, 12 months later, I made over 300 grand. 12 months later, 456, 12 months later, 653, 12 months later, 750, 12 months later, 822. And it's, been, upward and onward since then. And that transitional process, I like to call waging war on personal change, because, I was in a place where it was going to take a massive amount of effort, a monumental shift to get out of the situation that I was in. And so I did. I waged war on personal change and became a completely different person in the process. The person that you guys are talking to or hearing from right now is a completely different person that existed 5 years ago. And I'm extremely proud of that. And not just in the business world, in my relationships, and with my body and my mind. It's just all transformed over these last 5 years. And I'm obsessed with progress and making sure that the next 5 years the exact same thing happens again.
So, I mean, going a little deeper into you too, and your story is pretty amazing. I come from a similar story as far as, the marriage, failed marriage, stuff like that, and then really changing and working on the self-development of my own self and so on too, which not a lot of people know about me.
Yeah.
What was your main trigger that kind of pushed you to get to where you were or where you are now and keep grinding and keep moving and keep pushing forward? What was that trigger?
So I think it was, one of those cliche, look yourself in the mirror, taking ownership moments. And for me, that was just getting to the understanding that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And it was all my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened was the 2 years prior to that, I was just completely content playing the victim. My wife did this, my business, my employer did this, my business partner did that. and was honestly looking back, just using it as an excuse to be lazy.
Hmm.
But there was a real fear that I had in my head that, my wife had an affair. And so I felt like my marriage had been taken away from me.
Hmm.
The way that I lost my business, I felt like it had been taken away from me. And so I had this fear of going all in again, that it would be taken away. Um, and so I was just stuck. And it took me realizing that, all those things happened for a reason. And now looking back, I'm so grateful for every single thing, every single struggle, every single pain that I went through, because it's made me the person that I am today. It's made me the father, the husband, the business partner, the friend that I am today. But it was realizing that, all that stuff was my fault. 100%. I had to take ownership of that, and the encouragement in that, and where I, really found my ground, was that if I got myself into that situation, if I got myself to where I was at, which was in a very bad place, then I could get myself out of it.
Hmm.
And it was a slow process at first, but man, once you make that mental switch and take complete ownership of your life, take complete responsibility for your life, man, things can start happening very fast. And for me, it did over that next 12 months. Now, luckily for me, I was put into a business that had a system in place that was perfectly aligned with what I needed, which was my confidence was at an all-time low. And I was put into a very fast-paced, highly transactional sales environment where I could go put in work and see an instant result from that work put in, which would build my confidence. And then I would go put in 2x work and I would see 2x results, which would build my confidence. And I would go and put 3x results and get, or 3x effort and get 3x results. And it built my confidence back extremely fast. And that was exactly what I needed at that time. So I feel extremely fortunate for having that opportunity. I wouldn't say fall in my lap, but have those relationships that came into my life, offer that opportunity up to me. But ultimately it was me taking them up on that opportunity, and then me, applying massive, massive, massive effort into it, that reaped those rewards. And we're still reaping those rewards today.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, man. Because and unfortunately too, what you just said, a lot of people are stuck where
Yeah.
you were, and
Yeah.
they're not taking that action or moving forward and making that choice
Yeah.
to change and stuff like that because they're comfortable, or they're just stuck and they feel like they can't go to that next level. And you're a prime example of that too.
Well,
Which,
and I think a lot of people, especially, into their 30s, into their 40s, into their 50s, you can feel like you have so much to do, like you have so much to catch up on, you have so much ground to make, that you end up getting nothing done. Like it's paralyzing.
yeah.
And I've felt that before. And, some of those times where you have the most to do, you do the least, because it's like, where do I start? But I think it's in that process of just making that first step and taking that first step and that first action that creates that momentum to where all of a sudden, next thing you know, you look up 5 years from now and you're a completely different person in a completely different scenario. And it was all because of those first steps that you put in. And so that's the encouragement to those out there that feel stuck, is that the only way you're going to get unstuck is by taking that first step.
Hmm.
And it's not in watching another video or listening to another podcast or reading another book. You have to actually go do something. That's one thing I've really, really been passionate about lately, is I just find so many people that have read every book, they've listened to every podcast, they're in every mastermind and group and this and that, but they're not doing anything.
Hmm.
And they're learning a lot and they feel great about themselves, but their financial situation is exactly the way it was before they learned the stuff. And so, education without application gets you absolutely nowhere. And so, I would far rather have someone that's really to work their face off, that has zero skills or zero knowledge and self-development, because that stuff will come.
Hmm.
To me, I'm just obsessed with finding people that have the work ethic to go and just make things happen, and understand that when I take that step, that the next step will become a lot more clear in the process.
Yeah, exactly. And just brushing off what you just said too, a lot of people being stuck, they just, they're going to blink, time flies. You're going to blink, it's 5 years later, and you're still
Yep.
stuck in that same position. You blink, it's 10 years later, you're still in the same position. So what you just said was
Yeah.
awesome, man. It's
Yeah.
spot on for
Yep.
sure. So let's dive into your business a little bit here. How did the company start, and why did you choose, insurance, the insurance business? Me and you discussed this a little bit, so let's dive deeper into what was your reason for making that choice.
So, my business partners are the ones that founded the company,
Mm-hmm.
and they heard that you could make a bunch of money in life insurance. and that was the reason why they went into life insurance. But what they found when they went into life insurance is, in the beginning, they were trying to be all things to all people. And that's one of the biggest things that I want to impress upon people is when you try to be all things to all people, you end up being nothing to no one.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to become specialized. You have to, target an extremely narrow niche of people. And the narrow that you're thinking right now, it's probably 6 or 7 levels narrower. And so when we finally got streamlined to where we were selling to one specific group of people, and then started building systems around that group of people and started to begin to understand those people better than they understand themselves, that's when everything, started to change. And that's really when I came on board, is when they had really just put that process in place and was getting those systems solidified. And what they needed was someone to go out there and prove what was possible. They had agents, around the country that were working for them, but, people were selling, and the numbers that of the policies we sell is crazy to the average insurance agent. Average insurance agent in America that does it full time for a career sells, 100 to 125 life insurance policies. I sold over 8,000 in 3.5 years. Our top agent last year sold over 3,200 life insurance policies. And those are one-on-one, face-to-face, one-on-one. Nothing done online, nothing done, in any type of funnel or anything like that. These are all face-to-face interactions. But, at that time when I came on board, we had some people that were doing 20 policies in a week, occasionally a 30 or 40. Somebody would go crazy and do 50 policies in a week. But what the founders of the company knew is that this system would generate 100 policies a week. And they had done it themselves, but nobody else, out in the field was doing that. And so it was kind of one of those Roger Bannister, 4-minute mile, or whatever the name of the guy that just ran that 2-hour, under
Mm-hmm.
2-hour marathon. They said, hey, we need you to go down into this territory, which was down in Georgia. And we need you to show people what's possible if you implement an insane amount of work into this system. And so that's what I did. I went and, very quickly, 50 policies a week, 75 policies a week, had my first 100 policy week, had my first 150 and 200 policy week. My record was 238 policies in 4 days that I sold one-on-one, face-to-face. And the awesome thing to see now is this evolution to where our top 10 list every week now within our company is always over 100 policies. So it became the new normal. It became this standard of which people were like, oh, you can actually go out and do this. And once that belief is built, then, it's game over. Now everybody thinks that that's what they're supposed to do, on a weekly basis. And so, that was really my role. Was to solidify that the system could generate that type of production, which would then generate that type of income. And now that's, what the majority of our agents are doing on a weekly and monthly basis. And it's been a really awesome process to watch. But, at the end of the day, insurance for us, it's just a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I can sit here in front of you right now and tell you I have zero interest in insurance. It doesn't fire me up. I didn't wake up this morning and go, man, I get to go in the office today and talk about life insurance. It's just a vehicle. It's an incredible vehicle. It's a vehicle that I believe in. I believe everybody should have life insurance. I believe there's a multitude of reasons to have it and ways to use it. But at the end of the day, for us, we look at ourselves as a leadership development company disguised as an insurance agency. And so our number one goal from day one was to provide a vehicle, being an opportunity for someone to come on board with us and become the best versions of themselves, to become the best fathers, the best wives, the best, friends, the best shape of their life, the best mental place that they've ever been, because they are connected to our company. And there's a lot of ways that we do that. A lot of ways in the culture that we've built within our organization, this culture of growth and practice and going all in on all areas of your life. And that's probably the most rewarding thing. Like, we know our agents on an intimate level. It's a family. It's a family that has, 90 people in the family. But, it is a family. It's a tribe. These agents know that we would absolutely go to battle for them at the drop of a hat, if we needed to. And that's something that we're extremely proud of.
Yeah, I mean, that alone, because you don't see that many companies out there with that kind of background and that kind of training, and so everything you just said too, and the core values that that company has that you're
Yeah.
working with too is pretty amazing.
Yeah, our values as a company. I mean, most companies have, mission, vision, values, and it's
Mhm.
just kind of like a check a box, put it on the website somewhere, and that's it. But like our mission, vision, values, you could wake our agents up in a dead sleep, and they can not only recite it, they can tell you what it means to them. And our values are a little different. Our values are loyalty and responsibility. And loyalty we look at very differently. A lot of companies, when you come on board, they require you to be loyal to them.
Mhm.
We just think that that's ridiculous. Like, I don't know you, you don't know me. How on earth should we be loyal to one another? However, if we are loyal to the same mission and we're loyal to the same vision and we operate by the same code of ethics or morals, then we're basically walking in parallel and are thus loyal to one another.
Mhm.
Now, when one of those two parties decides they're no longer loyal to that mission or vision, or they no longer want to operate by that same code of ethics, then we're not loyal to one another. Over time, sometimes months, sometimes years, as we're walking down this road and we look to our left and right and say, hey, he's still here. He's still with us. He's still operating at this level. Over time, that trust is built where you are then bridging the gap to being loyal to each other as people.
Mhm.
But before, it's just being loyal to the mission and vision. Like, we just want people that are fully sold out to what we're doing as a company, and then we're loyal to one another in that process. And then over time we become loyal to the individual, and that's when it really becomes special. And then the second is responsibility, and we look at that as personal responsibility. And we believe that the lack of personal responsibility is a absolute cancer in our society, and that the basis is what we started this podcast on: is everything is your fault.
Mhm.
Every single thing is your fault. Take ownership of it, take responsibility of it. And not until you take personal responsibility can you really take responsibility or care for anybody else around you. But once you do, once you have taken that personal responsibility, once I did dig myself out of that place that I was in, then I could look up and take a deep breath and look to my left and right and see, who else can I take care of? And it's just been a continual process of that ever since. And so it's a different way of looking at those values, but it's something that, man, it's at the core. Every time we get on the webinar, every time we meet together, we're talking about these things in depth, and it's ingrained in every one of our agents, which is, special. It's unique.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then plus the face-to-face sales, like you said too, that's so rare these days because everybody wants that quick online lead, or
Yep.
how can I do a sales funnel to grab this lead? Or with me, like with real estate and stuff, Zillow, how can I pay Zillow to get leads and stuff? It's never face-to-face, which I'm big on face-to-face, or
Yeah.
talking in person too. And
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the business. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, if there's more efficient ways to do things, I'm all for it. But what I have found is that the majority of people are just not willing to work as hard as we're willing to work.
Mhm.
We're working 12, 14, 16-hour days, sometimes sometimes longer, to see that many people face to face.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes the least efficient things are the most effective. And, for us, that's certainly the case. Our conversion ratios, our close ratios are just astronomical compared to the industry average. And, it's all about a system. I'm a big systems guy, and we have perfected our system, and it's constantly evolving. We just made changes last week to parts of our scripts and things that we find in the field that we think can make it better. But at the end of the day, until you're sitting across from someone and a pen is pressed on a piece of paper, you know nothing happens. And so I think, a lot of this efficiency or, doing things online is done for the sake of laziness, not really for the sake of how can I get more done. It's just how can I get less stuff done that I don't want to do because it's hard. And I think that that's never the answer for efficiency. Efficiency is once you've already done the hard work, how can I make, do more in less time? Not, man, I hate working this hard. Let me figure out a different way to do it. It's just a different way to look at, innovation.
Yeah, and it's also like you just said too, after the deal's done, and I talk about this quite a bit, how can I work harder for that client or that customer to make it the process even easier for them too?
Yeah.
Like me, example, I just sold a house. Now I just had an inspection. Being a contractor also, well, I'm allowed to fix a lot of those things that were issues. Your
Yeah.
typical real estate agent can't do that, or doesn't have a clue. And then that customer, my seller, has to pay for it, or the buy,
Yeah.
vice versa. So it's going above, doing it for nothing. Obviously I'm doing the deal for them and everything too, but taking the time out of my time to go and fix those things and do a stucco repair for them and fix a door handle, stuff like that, I can do. So
yeah,
above and
absolutely.
beyond, man.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know what you just said after hearing what you just said on the life insurance thing, but I got to ask you, because a lot of people, don't know about life insurance, or they don't even consider it because they're, I'm not going to die anytime soon, but you don't know. Explain what life insurance is and why life insurance is important, just briefly, because
Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the day, one of my favorite lines is everybody gets to choose the legacy they leave behind. And the reality is, if something were to happen to you today, what type of financial situation are you going to leave your family with? And can you take care of that with a product like life insurance to make sure that if something happened to me today, that my wife is going to be well taken care of for years, so that she can just deal with the grief and not the financial burden as well. We can't do anything to help somebody's grief. Like, someone dies, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
But having a financial burden on top of that, I mean, to me, that you can be the greatest human being on the planet, but that financial burden is going to taint that legacy that you leave behind. You leave behind, a family and a couple of kids that are now trying to figure out what in the world they're going to do, for money, with their mortgage, with their expenses, with this business that you left them that they have no earthly idea how to run or what to do with it. Then you just left them in financial ruin. And you could have been the greatest man of all time. That's going to affect the legacy that you just left behind. And so, for me, it's all about making sure that the people that I care about the most are taken care of if I were to be gone. I talk a lot about this idea of a living legacy, that life insurance is really, a legacy that you leave for your family. But this living legacy is all the things that you do while you're still here, leaving a legacy in your family, and the time that you're spending with them, and the way you treat them, and the way that you're just all in on all those areas of your life. But, life insurance to me is just a necessity. It's just like everyone has to have it. And, people do think they're invincible. They do think they're Superman, like nothing's going to happen to me. And, that just never works out well. So there's a multitude of things that you can do with life insurance on the wealth accumulation side, and the retirement side, and the protection of assets, and protection of business, like Reiman life insurance policies. There's all kinds of stuff, but we're super simple. We sell a very simple product, and it's just extremely efficient. And our goal, in my mind, for the average person in America, they just need to find the absolute best coverage for the lowest cost and invest the difference. Like all these different life insurance products that have investments built into them, and all these different whole life and universal life and all that, yes, some of them are fantastic, but 98% of people don't use them the way that they're intended to be used. So I just think you go buy term life insurance. It's kind of the Dave Ramsey model, really. Just go buy term life insurance and invest if you want to invest. Keep your investments and your insurance completely separate. That's just the way I look at it. You could, line up 100 insurance agents. They tell you 100 different things. But I think a lot of those things are being told because that's what they want to sell you, because those products make them a higher commission. Point blank. And it can get very complicated, and it's very easy to make money off of things when you complicate it. So I just keep it super simple with people, be very open and transparent and honest with them. And a lot of times I'll say everybody gets to choose the legacy they leave behind. What do you want to start with? And that's powerful. And it's everyone's heard of that story of someone's dad or someone's mom that died, and they didn't have any life insurance, and how it just absolutely devastated. Their brothers and sisters are all putting together money to pay for the funeral, and figuring out what to do with the house, and all of these things that can all be avoided just by $100 a month, $50 a month, $25 a month. It's ridiculous when I see it happen, but it is what it is. And I think millennials are probably in the worst shape as far as the amount of life insurance coverage on a generation. But that is what it is. They'll figure it out. Not worried about it.
Yeah, most people do. But see, right there, what you just said right there kind of shows that you are passionate about life insurance too, and people having it and so on. Because and I could tell the knowledge that you have about it, but you're not your typical salesperson that you're just trying to make that big commission and sell them the biggest policy out there too, and you're doing it the right way, which the right way usually is what gets you ahead too. That's for sure. So as you know too, the show's about real estate and construction, so let's tie, you brushed on it a little bit as you were talking, let's tie it into, let's start here. Let's talk about life insurance policies that can benefit, like somebody within real estate or owns real estate, or the real estate investor. And I know you've said whole life insurance. I've heard about that. Let's talk about maybe tax benefits towards that, which policies can help.
I really think the biggest thing that people that are in real estate, especially real estate investing, the biggest thing that you need to do is you need to look at, if I were to be gone today, what type of debt obligations do I have out there? And who's going to pay for that? And you need to just make sure that you have enough life insurance to where if you were gone today, that your spouse or your kids or your significant other, that they could take care of all those debts that you have incurred throughout your business. And making sure that there is a process in place so that they know how to take care of it all. Like you think about somebody with, 45, 50, 100, 200 rental properties that they're managing all by themselves. Their spouse knows nothing about that business. If they were gone tomorrow, what in the world is your spouse going to do with 200 rental properties? Other than get paralyzed because they have no idea what to do. It's a terrible situation to leave your family in. It's a great situation to be in. You got 200 rental properties, like that's awesome. You're doing your thing, but you just got to think about things further in the future. Like what were to happen if I was gone? And I hate when people say like, oh, well, I'll be gone, I don't care. Like, yeah, grow up. It's a lot more serious than that. And so, I honestly, I don't know anything about, certain, I know a little bit, but I don't know enough about tax incentives and way to use insurance to leverage real estate. I don't look at any of that stuff at all. It's just not part of our business model, and it's something that I'm passionate about or interested in. But I think at the very least, you just need to make sure that if you died today, that your family would have enough money set aside, whether it's through savings or through life insurance products, to be able to pay off everything. Or to be able to at least live comfortably for a couple of years while they're trying to figure out what in the world to do with all this real estate. The last thing that you want to do is be a burden on your family when you're gone. And, what you've built up as a massive asset is going to be a burden, when all of a sudden that you're gone and they're trying to figure out how in the world to sell these properties or who's going to manage them and all that. It's just a mess. And messes are a whole lot easier to deal with when there's money. And so, your spouse is going to be way less stressed out about, figuring out all the logistics of your business when she's got $1 million in the bank and she can pay her mortgage, and she's not worried about what we're going to do for groceries.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go into that. So that insurance, how's that work? So say somebody does pass, and the wife obviously finds out that he had 200 rental properties or whatever. How's that money end up getting dispersed to her? What would she have to do to prove that she should receive that money?
Yeah. So life insurance, I mean, typical life insurance policy, you're going to have to fill out a ton of paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a death certificate. You're going to send that off, and then you're going to get a check cut. Um, and that check you can use for whatever in the world you want to use it for. And, that's one thing to make sure, and this would be something valuable for people, is to make sure that you're updating, your wills, your,
Mm-hmm.
estates, your trusts, your, beneficiary designations on your life insurance policies. You'd be shocked how many people die and they've got an ex-wife or a ex, girlfriend, or a, detached, like, sibling that's still the beneficiary on their policy, and they've been married 3 times since then, and it creates a gigantic issue. But at the end of the day, someone dies, they submit the paperwork, and there's a check cut.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's how it works. And then you can use that money to take care of everything. And there's certainly ways that you can be more meticulous about that, as far as setting up a trust and making sure that it's the money is being distributed exactly how you want it to be distributed. For some people, that's important. For some people, it's not. I personally, the way my life's set up right now, I just want to make sure that there's enough money that my wife is going to be able to take care of my daughter. I don't necessarily need to know that, my daughter's going to get this much, and when she turns 18, she's going to get this much, and she's going to have this much for college. And this, my wife's smart enough to figure that stuff out. But when you're in a, complex family dynamic, and you've got tons of kids, and you've got relatives, and you've got organizations you want to support, it's important to make sure that the money's going to go, where you want it to go, because that's kind of the whole point, and why you're doing it.
So the real estate end of it too, though, using a life insurance policy to buy real estate, how does somebody even do that, and why would they even do that? That's quite, instead of getting a loan or some other.
So there's life insurance products that you can use to accumulate cash value, and you can take loans from the cash value of those policies, to use for anything, and in that case, use for real estate. It's just a tricky thing. You have to have good advice when you're doing any type of thing like that, and you really need to vet the person that you're buying it from, because those policies kick off huge commissions, and typically they're just not used the right way. If you take too much money, all of a sudden you can get taxed on it, and it becomes a huge nightmare. There's all kinds of regulations and stipulations on those policies where the majority of people just never use it for that. But if done the right way, it can create some very efficient ways to get to your money. Instead of having to go to a bank to get a loan, you can just literally send an email and call your insurance carrier and say, hey, I need a loan for this much, and they will wire it, and you'll have it in 24 hours. But again, those products are expensive and they're complicated, and so it's not something that the average person needs to just take that advice and say, yeah, I'm going to do that, I'm going to put all this money into it. And you really, 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 it's something that you need to take some time to think about. Is this the smartest thing for me to do? The average person, that's not the right thing for them to do. I think once you get to the point where that makes sense, then you're at a point where your knowledge base and your, professionalism, like it's just a different level of thinking.
Yeah.
The average person doesn't need to worry about any of that.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, and if they are going to start doing that stuff, it's like you just said, do your research prior to doing it. So
yeah, and you need the best thing in the world, the most important thing in the world, not the most important thing in the world. That's a ridiculous thing to say. But it's extremely important to have a good CPA, and a good financial advisor, and ones that you trust, and ones that are looking out for your best interest, and that are proactively, working on your finances, not are just reactive to the questions that you have. I mean, they're worth their weight in gold, just in the tax savings and the different things that are out there. But man, I'm a big, big, big proponent of just keeping things super simple.
Yeah.
There are millions and millions and millions of dollars to be made, and it can be way more simple than people try to make it. Usually when people are trying to complicate it,
You
it's
lose
just,
money. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just, it's not worth this. The juice isn't always worth the squeeze in those scenarios.
Yeah, they get too technical. They end up spending more than they're really wanting to spend. That's usually how it works.
Yeah.
So
And you get tied up into things and cancellation fees. And there's just,
yeah, yeah,
it's just, I don't know. It's, it's something that is a great thing to sell for the salesperson, huge commissions, everything sounds really great. But, I think there's a lot of times where those things are being sold to people when they 100% know that that person should not be buying that product.
hmm yeah, and that's unfortunate too. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate. I mean, it's in every business, though.
Oh
Too.
yeah, sure.
I deal with it in the building industry all the
Oh
time.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
for
just
sure.
people are buying. They're going. I had a big thing on it. They're going with less price person. They're not doing the research, and they're not, taking the time to see, what each builder's given them,
Yeah,
and end
absolutely.
up getting screwed later on. So
Yeah.
it's big. So obviously with this show too, it's about value to the customers, but it's also about helping people that are in business too.
Yeah.
So I want to discuss with you a little bit, like your pre-planning stages. What should customers look for? With this stage, we both know they're going to shop other agents too. And I just
Mhm.
kind of brushed on that with building. I deal with it all the time. I'm sure you do.
Yep.
What can we do to help them select the right agent based on, the quality and also the connection, and not just based on price?
Yeah. So I think the biggest advice that I can give for people in real estate or development, um, you got to figure out the target market that you're trying to reach,
Hmm.
and you need to get as narrow as humanly possible. And you need to become the expert in that space. Like,
Yeah.
people need to know that, oh, you're looking for a single story home in the 2 to 250 range on the east side of town. You got to talk to Tyler because he's the guy.
Yeah.
Like, you need that level of awareness, and you can only do that by first figuring it out. Like, if you're going to figure out a target market, you might as well make it one that you enjoy being around. I just get a kick out of people that come up with this business idea, and they're going to target this one group of people, and they hate dealing with that group of people. And I'm like, why in the world would you build a business around people you hate being around? But it happens all the time.
Hmm.
So figure out, who do I want to target, and then just start learning and educating yourself on everything. Like, know them better than they know themselves. Build all your systems around getting them to a buying decision quickly. It's no different. Literally, it's no different than speaking to a Spanish person in German versus Spanish. Like, that's the level that we take it. And it has zero to do with like manipulation or taking advantage. To me, it's the ultimate form of integrity. Like, I have done my research. I know this group of people better than anyone, and I'm doing the right thing for them. And because of that, I can get them to a buying decision very quickly to where they would never look, anywhere else, because it's so blatantly obvious that I'm the person to go to in that space. And
Hmm.
so, whatever that looks like for you, if it's a certain, industry that you're targeting, if it's a certain demographic that you're targeting, if it's a certain area that you're targeting, if it's a certain price range and style, figure out what that is, and then just completely go all in on that group of people or that industry or whatever. It's always going to work out in your favor, becoming an expert. And so, to me, that's 100% been the success in our insurance business. 100%. For the longest time, we sold one product to one person,
Hmm.
and that's it. We've added another product, but we still only sell it to one person, and it works. And you can build a system around that. It's hard to systematize things that are going to all kinds of different people and all kinds of areas and all types of projects. It's just very, very difficult. I think people need to get way more laser focused on their efforts, and that they're going to find it's going to be way more efficient in the long run.
Yeah, and what you just said too, that kind of reflects off of them not caring about the overall price too, because
Oh yeah. If you're selling on price, you've already lost. I mean,
yeah,
at the end of the day, like if cost is the reason why somebody's going with you, then you may not have lost yet, but it's coming.
yeah,
Because I mean, you don't want to be a commodity, and especially in a down market, it's just
hmm,
people do business with people they know, like, and trust, and people know, like, and trust people that only deal with their type of people. Like,
hmm,
when you're speaking their language, they are going to trust you, they are going to like you, and they're going to do business with you, especially in a down market. People need to be preparing. I don't know about where you are, but I mean, in the next 24 months, like, something's going to happen. I don't, 36 months, maybe the latest, but I mean, we've been in a incredible economy for 11 years now. Like,
yeah, yeah,
something's going to happen.
yeah.
And, you got to be building that brand and building those relationships now to where people, know, like, and trust you and want to continue or start doing business with you in the future.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if people don't think that's going to happen soon too, because I've
It's
actually it's coming because
yeah.
especially with an election year coming up too, that usually
Mhm.
causes a slowdown as well. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
a lot of these people, and especially in my industry too, builders, why? Because when things get busy, everybody, I always say, with the pickup truck becomes a builder.
Hmm.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
going to start hitting.
And honestly, it's needed. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, a lot of people say.
Especially because things will get a little bit better on social media when, things aren't so easy.
Yeah, that's true. I highly agree on that one. So, your company, let's go back into your company. You guys
Hmm.
have grown pretty fast, over the last few years.
Yep.
What are you doing to stand out from the rest of the many insurance or life insurance agents or companies out there? You brushed on this a little bit, but let's dive more into that one.
Man, we're completely different. The insurance industry, I mean, if you just start from the beginning of the recruiting process, the insurance industry, 99% of it says, hey, hire them all, give them no support. If they're still here in 6 months, then start training them. We invest heavily on the front end to making sure that we have the exact right person for that territory. And we invest heavily in them on the front end to give them absolutely every single thing that they need to succeed.
Mhm.
Um, our recruiting process is insanely in depth. There's like 7 levels to it. I mean, they're starting off by, submitting their resume, 5 essay questions, recording and sending us a video of whether the best fit for that territory or whether the best candidate for that territory. From there, we have them take an insanely extensive personality profile assessment. From there, we have a guy that goes through these assessments and gives us a lengthy, detailed response as to whether or not they're a good fit. And we get that by profiling our top 25 agents every single year. So we have kind of an avatar, like, we know what a person looks like that has the highest probabilities to succeed in our business. From there, unless we're 100% from there, they don't even get to a first interview.
Hmm.
Then we do a first interview. I do the first interviews with them. They're typically an hour long and they're very detailed, a lot of questions. From there, we email them a script that they have to download and memorize and recite on video within 24 hours. And they have to give us that. Then we give them feedback on that video and tell them to change this, change that, do this more this way, do less of that. And they have to record another video and send it back to us to show us that they're coachable and teachable, that they can take feedback and implement it. From there, if we think that they're worth putting forward, we get them to a final interview with my business partner, and we're digging even deeper on any areas that we still have questions about. From there, we meet as a team of 5 people every Friday morning and go over all the recruits over the last week, and we look at all of this stuff collectively and make a decision on that person. It's extensive, but we've gotten insanely good at bringing on the right people. And then when we bring them on, we invest heavily in them. When they're in their first week, where they're actually going out and doing the sales activities, I fly out to their territory and do it with them. So I'll do calls, they'll do calls, I'll do calls, they'll do calls. Then we'll go run meetings the next day. They'll do a few, I'll do a few. They'll do a few, I'll do a few. And we're, hands on with them. They've got a trainer assigned to them. And so we just invest heavily on the front end, which makes a huge difference because we know what every territory is worth. and we know, the cost of a bad agent in that territory and what that does to our business. And so we're just extremely selective. We get hundreds of resumes for each territory, and it's a fraction of a percent that actually get to even the final interview. So that's very different. And then our culture is just completely different than any insurance agency that's out there. It's so growth and self-development focused. I mean, we're always reading a book as a company. We have so much leadership training that we're doing on a daily and weekly and monthly basis with them. And then we take them through a process that I put together 16 months ago called Life Goals. And so it's not mandatory, but the ones that want to participate in it, we take them through a coaching process where, if you look at the word life, L is love, which is relationships. I is influence, which is your mind. F is finances, which is your business. E is energy, which is your body. We set 3 90-day goals in each of those 4 areas. And then we get on a Zoom call just like this, 1 hour a month, and we hold them accountable to the things that they said was important. And so if you think about that, like right now, for the last 3 months, our CEO has been the one doing that with them. So our CEO is sitting down with them and saying, "Hey, how was your date night Friday?" And they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, we weren't able to do it Friday." Well, it says here, non-negotiable date night every Friday. So what happened?
No.
And then we're talking about, are you eating carbs and sugar this month? How's your diet? How are your workouts been? And, these conversations get extremely deep, extremely personal. I mean, they open up to us about stuff that they don't open up to anybody about.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to know them on an intimate level. And the crazy thing was, the first 12 months of us implementing this coaching, we had about half of our agents participate and half that didn't. Really no rhyme or reason as far as like their production level or how long they've been with us. It's just about 50-50 down the line. And over the first 12 months, the agents that participated in this life goals process did 26.7% more volume, which in our world is an extra $52,000 a year.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, of that hour call, we talk about business for probably 5 minutes. But of course, if your mind's in the best place it's ever been, your relationship's better than it's ever been, your body's in the best place, of course your business is going to improve.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to the very beginning of our desire to help people become the best versions of themselves. This gives us the ability to do that, and it's probably one of the most rewarding things that we do, because we get to know these people on such a deep level, and that relationship that's built there, I mean, it's loyal through and through. And it's been a very, very rewarding process for us to go through. And there's a multitude of other things, but we're just very different. We're pretty politically incorrect. We say a prayer and pledge before every single meeting. That's just who we are. We're a Christian-based organization, and we're certainly not ashamed of that. We give a lot of money to some different organizations. One of our other values is radical generosity. In the last 7 years, we've given away over $1 million to charitable organizations that we're highly connected with. And we don't just give money, we give an insane amount of our time. I'm headed to Nicaragua in 2 weeks. I was just there 3 months ago, working. We're going to be building houses down there. And we've got, I think we did 750,000 meals last year through these food centers that we fully fund. And so it's just very different. But it really all gets back to our initial desire, is to be a leadership development company. Just so happens to be disguised as an insurance agency.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amen to that, by the way, too.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Because you don't ever see that with pretty much majority of companies. On top of, you're almost creating a family, and then you have that accountability aspect in between.
Yep.
And that's causing them to produce, work on themselves, be better people, and so on, which you are correct. I mean, anybody that betters themselves, works on themselves, and is more confident too,
Yep.
they're going to have more success in business, life in general. So
Absolutely.
that's amazing, actually, to hear, man. So let's jump ahead here real quick, as far as like your customers too. How, after, I always ask this with everybody, because obviously this is about what customers should look for too. So after the sale or the initial transaction with you guys, how are you going about your customer service, or how are you maintaining, the relationships with those people? Because a lot of the time, as you know too, done deal, I'm out of here, never talk to them again,
Yep.
which is not what you're supposed to do, but unfortunately a lot of people do it. So how are you not doing that and maintaining those long term?
So one of the biggest things that sets our agency apart is that our home office here in Greenville, South Carolina, takes care of all of the customer service.
Okay.
We just believe that salespeople should be salespeople,
Hmm.
and we want our agents fully focused on income producing activities. And the reality is answering phone calls to change a beneficiary, or with a question about their policy, or, they want to increase their coverage, like all that type of stuff is just time that's taken away from the income producing activities of them going out and selling policies.
Yeah.
And so we actually handle all of that here. And it's a live person that always answers the phone. And, the reality is we can handle it here better than they can handle it anyways. But it frees up their time, which is an incredible amount of freedom that they have now to just go out and do what's most important, which is to make those transactions happen. And that's why we're able to do such incredible volume, is because we're taking care of all of that stuff, especially on the retention side, because that's a big thing in the insurance industry. When someone's payment doesn't go through and their policy lapses and they get a chargeback on that commission, those chargebacks are eating away at all your commissions that you're going out and producing currently. Our persistency rate, or our retention, is way higher than the industry average. But it's because we have an incredible team here that's calling, texting, emailing at all different hours of the day. They're bonused on how many policies that they're able to save, and they're very highly in tuned with what our agents do in the field. And they're very aware of the importance of this product, and they've each got a story of someone that they were tracking down. It takes 90 days for our policies to actually lapse if they don't pay. A lot of times it's just they got a new debit card, or they changed bank accounts or something like that, but people are hard to get a hold of.
Hmm.
And so they've all got a story of someone that they were tracking down for 2 months and could never get a hold of them. And then a week before the policy lapsed, they were able to get a hold of them, get the policy back on the books, and a week later they died. And had they not tracked them down for 75, 80 days, that family would have been devastated financially when that death occurred.
Wow.
So they've all got those stories that they can't tell with a dry eye. And so they're just really connected to what it is that we actually do. It's not just a robo dial, just calling and going through the motions. Like they know the importance of this product for these families, and they keep them on the books. And we get actually an email from them every month saying, hey, we were able to save this many policies from canceling, which saved you this many dollars in chargebacks. And there were times when I was writing business in the field where they would save me like 7, 8, 9, 10 grand in a month
Hmm.
in chargebacks because of the work they were doing. So for us, that's really important, is for us to be able to handle all of that stuff to the absolute best of our ability from the home office standpoint, and relieve our agents from that responsibility, because it's a difficult job to be out there selling and serving
Yeah.
your customers. So we want to take care of all that for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, because it's just making them focus on, like you just said, focus on
Yep.
themselves as salespeople, because
Yeah.
what you hired them to do is to sell. So
Yeah. And personality types, most salespeople are not customer service driven.
yeah.
The best salespeople are not customer service driven.
Hmm.
So why would we force someone that's out of their it's out of their nature to do those tasks? Why would we force them to do that and then come down on them when they're doing bad at it? Why would we not just take care of that for them and let them go do what they're born to do?
Yeah. Awesome, man. So let's get back to you with you personally. We talked about how you came from some hard times, turned your life around, and now you turned it towards success and helping other people and so on. I mean, your social media is awesome. And your story's amazing. So what we kind of talked about this. So what changed, and how can we personally all implement these changes into our own lives to better ourselves in whatever we do?
Man, I'm really big on going all in all areas.
Hmm.
And I'm so sick and tired of hearing people talk about needing balance, work-life balance. How do I find balance? And the reason I'm sick of it is because every time people talk about it, they're talking about it in a way or as a crutch to work less.
Mm-hmm.
Like you never hear people talk about work-life balance that that they need to work more. You never hear a man say, man, I crushed it last quarter at home with my wife and my kids. This next quarter I really need to be in the office more. Like that's never the work-life balance conversation. It's always like, man, my life's just so out of balance. I need to start leaving the office at 3 every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like ridiculous. Like if you need to be with your family more, be with your family more. It doesn't mean you need to work less. It may mean you need to sleep less, or maybe you need to, have less happy hours on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and have less extracurricular activities and hang out with your friends less, but doesn't mean you need to be at work less. And so, I believe that the truly successful, the highest level performers balance through addition, not subtraction.
Mm-hmm.
And that is my advice for everyone, is to look at each area of their life. And, we split that up as, your relationships, your body, your mind, and your business, and just go all in on them. And to understand that your life is never going to be in balance, but it's more about becoming aware of the imbalances quicker and adjusting accordingly faster. So becoming aware when, hey, I probably should, spend some more time at home. But understand that when you do that, it's going to create an imbalance somewhere else. And so it's more of like this kind of ebb and flow, or you can call it a harmony or whatever you want to call it. But it's just this understanding that, people beat themselves up too much about not being balanced, but it doesn't exist. Like true balance doesn't exist. One of the people that's had the biggest impact in my life is a pastor named Erwin McManus out of California, Mosaic Church. And he's just incredible. And I had him on my podcast one time, and I asked him, how do you get people to get past this idea of, needing balance and just to go all in on life? And his answer was just so beautiful and eloquent, as most of the stuff he says is. It's like I prepped him for a year in advance for this question. He just immediately said, well, if you think of balance less as equality and more as an asymmetrical symmetry, I think you'd I think you'd have a different perspective on balance. It's like, okay, continue. And he said, so if you think of the earth is in balance with the sun, and all of the planets in the solar system are in balance with one another, but they're not the same size. They're not the same. They're all completely different, but they all are working in balance. So is true with our lives in figuring out which area deserves the greatest gravitational pull during that season. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what it's all about. It's understanding that nothing will ever be in this balance as equality, that it's all about just realizing at this moment, right this second, where does my focus and attention need to be? And then tomorrow it's going to be different, and being okay with that and not beating yourself up about it. And at the very least, stop talking about it and complaining about it.
Yeah.
And so that's it. Like I want to be seen as a guy that was going all in at all times in all areas. Like when I'm with my family, I'm completely all in. When I'm working, I'm completely all in. When I'm at the gym, I'm completely all in. When I'm reading, I'm completely I just want to be so laser focused on the task that's in front of me, and eliminate distractions. And I think that ultimately is the key to success. And it's the key to eliminating a lot of the failures that have come along the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's being all in on you personally too, as and not worrying about everybody else around you constantly, and with all the distractions, like you said, with social media, and constantly looking at somebody else and what they're doing too. Because I mean, majority of the time, as you know, on social media, you're only seeing the good, and so on. But it's more focusing on you, worrying about you. And if you're looking at social media, you should just be posting, so.
Absolutely.
And posting something of value to other people too, which I've been doing nonstop, and you do constantly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Your social media is awesome, like I said.
Thank you.
So, kind of towards the end here. So most people don't really ask about this, but we talked about your past, which most people ask, when during an interview and stuff. But this question I want to ask more about what your plans are for the future. Whether it's business, your life. Where will we see Tyler Jack Harris in the future? Who will you be? Because you don't get that a lot. I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of interviews, and it's a question that not a lot of people think about too. So,
Yeah. It's,
what are
it's a
you
great,
thinking?
it's a great question. You know, I'm somebody that doesn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm extremely happy
Mm-hmm.
with the way my life is right now. I'm extremely grateful, and I feel so blessed to be where I am right now. And for the longest time, I would always say that, I don't want to put these labels on where I want to be in 5 years, where I want to be in 10 years, because I know that any label that I could possibly place on it now is so small in comparison to what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to literally with the law of attraction, attract something smaller into my life. But I think that was pretty much just an excuse not to sit down and think about it. But I don't know. Right now, I've got a 3-year-old that is just like my entire life, and that I just absolutely cherish every second that I get with her. I travel a lot. I'm typically in a different state every week, Monday night to Thursday afternoon. So, when I'm home, that's my world. My wife as well. I'm just, so locked tight with my family right now, and that's the most important thing for me. Business wise, our big focus is filling out the rest of our territories. We've got 24 territories still left that we're trying to fill, and then just optimizing and getting this business to its peak, and then see what's next. What else can we accomplish? Possibly other countries, taking this system to. There's a lot of things that we're looking at with the brand, personal brand side. I'm definitely looking to speak more. I haven't been proactive on that, but I love speaking on stage. I love talking about the things that I'm passionate about. And I'm super passionate about talking on building a personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
because the reason most people don't do it is because, number one, they think what they do isn't interesting. And I'm telling them, well, that's great. I sell life insurance. So if I can do it, you can do it. And, they say I don't have the time, which I assure you I have no time, and I make the time. And so, I love talking about building a personal brand. I love talking about leadership and, sales and all of those types of things. So I think that'll become a bigger part of my life. And, just continuing to build the brand. I mean, we've put out over 5,000 pieces of content over the last, 2.5 going on 3 years. We're putting out 3 to 5 posts a day, every single day on every single platform pretty much. And, it's just getting better and better in my opinion. And, the response I get from social media is some of the most rewarding things in my life now.
Mm-hmm.
The life-changing messages, from people. And it's, it really, really fires me up. It's probably one of the things that I'm most passionate about is the work I do on social media, because I don't monetize a single thing. I've never asked a single person for a penny. I've never asked, I don't even ask people for their email addresses, which is not a good thing. But I don't need anything. I'm good. And I think that's the problem, is the majority of people out there on social media,
They
you
want
know,
something, yeah.
they want something because they have to have it because they're not successful with what they're doing for their actual career. My career is going great, so I don't need your money. So I'm just going to provide value and continue to do that, and know that that's just the way the world works, that it'll all come back around in the end. And if it doesn't, I'm good with that too, because I'm having fun doing it. I enjoy
Mm.
it. I'm passionate about it. And for me, it's the ultimate accountability, and it's the way I hold myself accountable, by documenting my life and, putting it all out there. It's the way that I grow myself. And so I just allow other people kind of, be a part of that process.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you said, it's just helping people too, delivering value for nothing and
Yeah.
not asking for a penny, and keep, because you see that all the time too. Sign up for my course here. Let me deliver you a little snippet of something,
Hmm.
then click the funnel and blah blah. Then you're
Yeah.
getting email blasted and phone calls.
And again, that's why I think, a market crash and a down economy is going to be good, because a lot of that stuff will go away. A lot
Yeah.
of the people that, they can easily fake it right now aren't going to be able to. And the best thing in the world for them will be to document the fall and the rise back up. I doubt they will.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's going to be a necessary part to kind of have some shakeout of all the nonsense. I did a post this morning, and I think, what did it say? I said something like, the idea is to be successful, not look successful. And I put all these like kind of cliche social media influencer pictures on it. And I just said, hey, just a reminder, the vast majority of the people that you see posting the most and speaking on stages and doing all this stuff are broke,
Mm-hmm.
or they're 30 or 60 days away from being broke. And so the next time that you feel like you're being influenced by someone, just ask them, like, what was your adjusted gross income last year?
Mm-hmm.
If they don't know what that is, then you should run. But if they do, they should be able to tell you unashamedly, I made this much, I made that much. But they probably won't tell you, because they're broke. And, I just have a problem with that. I have a problem with people. I like the like 18 to 30-year-old, like, speaking circuit right now is just absolutely ludicrous. Like, there's a mastermind every single night in every single city with kids talking about stuff, and they've not ever done a single thing in their entire life other than got their page verified on Instagram. Like, it's the most ludicrous thing. And it's like something that I feel like I should like speak out about, but I'm just so against being negative that I'm just like, I don't want to waste my capacity. But it's ridiculous. Like, you see these, hey, we're having this big millionaire, billionaire, extraordinary mastermind, epic luxury, whatever yacht mastermind. And you see the lineup of these people and they're like, what in the world? What in the world has this person done? Like, absolutely nothing. And they're literally living off of their parents or off of credit cards. And it's all that stuff is just the worst. It's what's wrong with social media. That's for sure. Because unfortunately, there are people that are looking to that and they're like, man, I want to be that. Like, I want to learn from this person. I want to learn what to do, what they do. But if they actually knew that they're not doing anything other than talking about what they're supposedly doing, it's a real problem, because these people are being looked up to by millions and millions of people. And if they had any idea what their bank account statement looked like, I think they would probably run the opposite direction. But that's not the way it is. So.
No, I agree. It's a modern day con, basically.
Yeah, which I don't know. It's just there's no exit strategy there.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but and then these people are still going to do it. They're going to click on it. They're going to pay for that program or that book he typed up in his parents' basement.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be stuck and keep buying for more stuff and not learn anything and not do anything with that, and then they're broke. So it's unfortunate, like you said. So last question. I always ask this to everybody. What exactly do people need to look for when getting, insurance, life insurance, and why should they choose Tyler Jack Harris to work with?
I would easily say that they shouldn't, because I don't want your money. I don't want your business. I don't want, quite
great
frankly,
answer.
I'd love to talk to you, but I don't want to sell you anything. So, I mean, that's my answer to that. But I mean, what should you look for? You should look for someone that knows what they're talking about, and you should look for someone that's being honest, completely transparent, that goes through all the fees, that goes through all the, process with you. That's what you want. When you're with anything in life, but especially when you're dealing with your finances, you want someone that's upfront and honest with you. That's rare, but they're out there, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I highly agree. It is rare, and that's unfortunate. We've talked about that too, man. But they are out there, and when you find them too, it's the best person you can possibly work with, and it's going to go a lot smoother for you, and you're going to save a lot of money.
Yep.
So, this Tyler, this has been awesome. A lot of great value, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And I've spoke about multiple times about your social media and how people definitely need to follow you and your YouTube channels and stuff. So just where can they connect with you?
Yeah, everything's at Tyler Jack Harris. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, it's all Tyler Jack Harris. And I'd love to talk to people. Let me know what you thought about the podcast. I'd love to connect with you. I respond to all my DMs and all my comments and all that good stuff. And so would love to connect with people.
Awesome. Tyler, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for coming on The Real Build, man. I really appreciate you. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.